Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. For the longest time, you have all been asking me to make a video about the comment section with Brett Cooper, and so I thought today would finally be the day where I sit down and I make a video about her. The video I am going to be specifically talking about today is her video about the Queen's death, which is Unhinged Leftists Celebrate the Queen's Death. And there are a few reasons why I want to talk about this video specifically, and that is firstly, and most obviously, I am from a country in which was colonized by the British, and it is part of the Commonwealth. The Queen is still like the figurehead, the head of state or whatever. I don't actually know what she does, but you know, she's involved somehow. She's on all of our money and stuff. And I have lived in London for the past 3 years, where I am a British citizen and I hold a British passport because I'm cool and I have 2 passports. And so this is something that does affect me somewhat directly, you know? It happened just down the road, which is so wild. It's so wild to me that, like, you know, after living in Aotearoa, New Zealand, my whole life, living in London it's wild because, like, history happened here, you know? And, like, I don't mean that in which, like, Māori history isn't real history. I mean that, like, there are, like, buildings here that existed before people were even in New Zealand. Like, before it was just birds. Like, any person. There were no people there, but, like, Oxford University existed. And that's, like, insane to me. Anyway, that's... But yeah, that's like the main reason, is that this is something that has been bothering me a lot because I have been, you know, subjected to seeing everything about it everywhere. And I also am just like really confused about her response and like the response of a lot of, especially like conservative Americans. And I will get into that a little bit later on. But I just wanted to set the scene of, like, I know this happened a few weeks ago, but the funeral was only a couple days ago. And I've got a lot going on that is, like, kind of related to this. So I needed to talk about it because I needed to talk about it with you. So that's what we're doing. Anyway, that was the longest intro in the world. I'm so sorry.
Welcome back to the comment section. I'm Brett Cooper. And yesterday, on September 8th, Queen Elizabeth II, at 96 years old, passed away. One of the most heartbreaking things that I saw from all of yesterday was there was a video of all of the royal family's cars literally speeding into Balmoral. And what really stood out to me is I think most of the royals were driving themselves in. Like, Prince William drove himself and his family in. I mean, they were speeding around these corners.
There's something very funny about the fact that it, like, adds emphasis that, like, they were driving themselves. Oh my gosh, they were driving themselves. Did you know Prince William can drive? He can drive. He drove himself. I don't really understand the big deal with that. Like, sure, okay, maybe they have drivers a lot of the time, but, like, why is that add an extra layer of heartbreaking that they were speeding to see their sick mother? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm unempathetic, but that doesn't make sense to me.
As the news came out about her death, the internet literally broke open. I mean, so many people were taking the time to celebrate her legacy, to talk about all of her achievements, about how she, you know, ascended to the throne when she was 25, I believe. She and Prince Philip, you know, met when they were 13 years old. It was apparently love at first sight.
Ah, yes. Prince Philip. Love at first sight. I love of her life. Her cousin. Family love, you know? It's very important to love your family.
So this was a significant historical event for people even outside of the UK. I mean, Biden made a statement, Trump made a statement, Barstool was doing videos in honor of her, even Domino's Pizza made a post. Domino's UK said everyone at Domino's joins the nation in the world in mourning the death of Queen Elizabeth II. Our thoughts and condolences are with the royal family. Paddington the Bear, his Twitter account, tweeted about it. The National Kebab Committee in the UK was tweeting about it. Like, every single big account was mourning the loss.
I find this really funny that she seems like really shocked and like it was such a big deal. Like, even franchises cared. All these shops, they cared. They even tweeted. Like, it was clearly that big of a deal. Like, yeah, obviously it was a big deal. The freaking Queen died. You said yourself. The Queen had been on the throne for 70 years. It's obviously a big deal. The whole country, the entire country was like that. It wasn't just Domino's and a couple like kebab shops on Twitter. It was the entire country. The Queen died, and then every single radio station, every single television station was the same exact broadcast. You literally could not watch anything else on the TV or listen to anything else on the radio. Before concerts started, they were making the whole crowd be silent so they could have a minute of silence for the Queen. That did not go over very well, just by the way. Like, it's everywhere because she's the Queen. And we're in Britain, you know, the place where the monarchy is. She died, and obviously that was a massive deal for the country because she was the Queen. I don't know why you seem surprised. And like, even Domino's tweeted, everyone and their freaking dog said something. On the day of the funeral, the whole country literally had to close. Like, it was a big deal. We'll get into that one in a moment.
She lived an incredible life. She was the epitome of class and unflappability. She was 96 years old, and her reign was 70 years. I mean, it was an incredible accomplishment, and to so many, even here in America, she represented an era that we are rapidly seeing slip away, which is an era of tradition and heritage, and like I said, class.
She represents tradition and class, and those are like dying things. This doesn't make sense to me, because one, she was a 96-year-old wealthy woman. I think that she presents herself with the like class and things that she does because she's a 96-year-old woman. And if you look at a lot of elderly wealthy people, they hold similar sort of, you know, like values and things, especially like the Queen. They have very set in stone, very strict rules that they have to follow. And the tradition of what? This is what gets me. This is what really gets me. The Queen dying is like, it's seeing the tradition dying. The Queen's tradition, the tradition of the British monarchy, is what? Hoarding wealth? Abusing power? Colonizing countries and slaughtering all the native people? Like, what's this tradition you're talking about? They're really strict rules that they have to follow or they're gonna be disowned. Like, even if you're like disabled, you get disowned and pronounced dead when you aren't. Another fun tradition is protecting your image of, oh, this royal's a bit of a creep, a bit of a pedophile. No, we'll hide that. Doesn't matter. We'll protect him. That's a good tradition to have. But on top of that, overall, this like representing tradition of like, you know, the monarchy. The thing that gets me is I don't understand where you and all these conservative Americans come in and are like, I'm so sad the Queen died. The monarchy is so brilliant. I love the royals. I'm obsessed with the royals. She represented grace and beauty and class, and this is such a tragedy. Don't all of your political beliefs center entirely on the hatred of the monarchy? Like, your whole entire thing is the Constitution and independence and America, land of the free. Literally all of that exists from a war that you fought against the British monarchy in order to separate yourselves from them because you hated them. So why are you out here loving the monarchy? It doesn't make sense to me. It really, really is super illogical to me. I do not get it. Don't get it at all. You can't be saying land of the free while loving the monarchy, because land of the free it's literally means America is now free of the monarchy. Like, what are you doing? I don't get it. I don't get it.
This professor from Carnegie Mellon, who decided in the midst of the Queen dying, she thought that it would be a good idea to tweet out this. I heard the chief monarch of a thieving, raping, genocidal empire is finally dying. May her pain be excruciating. Then she goes on and she says, if anyone expects me to express anything but disdain for the monarch who supervised a government that sponsored the genocide that massacred and displaced half of my family and the consequences of which those still alive today are still trying to overcome, you can keep wishing upon a star. I don't care if you hate the person. That's wrong. She is still a mother and a grandmother. She still has a family. She still is meaningful to millions upon millions of people.
Okay, maybe wishing someone an excruciating and painful death isn't the best thing to do. I personally wouldn't do that, but I also understand where she's coming from. People don't have to be sad. They don't have to be sad over the death of a 96-year-old woman who sat on the throne and oversaw a ton of really terrible and awful stuff. She was the face of the monarchy and their entire history, right? The face of colonization and of genocide. And Indigenous people from all countries that were colonized by the British, which is so many, have every right to not be upset by this. And I promise you, that's got nothing to do with the fact that it's specifically Queen Elizabeth. It's just the monarchy in general. It could have been anyone sitting on that throne, and the reaction would have been the same.
They are so driven by these extreme heightened emotions of anger and rage and ideology and fear that they have totally bypassed and forgotten the most basic human emotion of empathy.
It is really hard to have empathy and be upset about this when it is directly affecting so many people in this country in a negative way. And I don't mean her death making people sad. I'm not talking about like the sadness of her death is what's affecting people negatively. I'm talking about the fact we are in the middle of a terrible financial crisis. It's absolutely awful. There are more homeless people than ever. Gas is so expensive. Electricity is expensive. Housing is ridiculous. And so many people, including myself, are really struggling to find places to live. And yet we spend billions of pounds of our tax money on a funeral and a coronation. Money that we supposedly don't have because otherwise surely there would be better welfare, there would be less homeless people, there would be less people starving. It's really hard to have that empathy because one woman who is 96 years old died, and then on the day of her funeral, food banks are closed and cancer treatment is cancelled for people, and other people's funerals are not allowed to take place. So other people aren't allowed to grieve their loved ones because the entire country is forced to grieve a 96-year-old woman who is the face of colonialism. And a lot of people don't care. And you shouldn't have to care. Sure, if you care about the Queen and you're upset and you want to mourn her, fine, do that. But don't spend all of my tax money to have a giant event of people marching down the street because the 96-year-old woman was old while refusing to pay for children to have lunch at school, because that was a thing that happened, if you remember, a couple of years back. They were trying to put into place a regulation where starving children were allowed to get free school lunches, and that was declined because we don't have enough money to do that. But apparently we have enough money to host the gigantic events that are the funeral and the coronation of a monarchy that is honestly really unneeded, and the people in it mostly really shit people. Like, I'm sorry, but UNICEF had to step in to feed children in the UK. But we can afford all of this. There were literally reporters saying the cost of living crisis doesn't matter right now because all that matters is the death of the Queen, and that's so fucked up.
The doctors in Scotland were concerned about the Queen's health coming as Liz Truss was making a rather important statement concerning the future of energy bills. That, of course, insignificant now, given the gravity of the situation we seem to be experiencing with Her Majesty.
It's so devastating because, like, you know that these are values that the government holds. You know that this is how people feel and how it is. But seeing it broadcast so blatantly and having it rubbed in your face that they really do not care about you at all is really, really awful. And you expect me to mourn while they are doing all of this? I'm not gonna do that. I can't find somewhere to live. I make pretty good money, and yet I can't find anywhere that I can afford. And the process to get a place to live is insanely difficult, and you need to make 3 times the amount the rent costs, which is absolutely absurd and unnecessary. So many people are losing their homes So many people are having to live with family, as I am living with mine. So many people are having to move away from where they have built their lives. So many people aren't able to afford food. Rent is increasing, council tax is increasing, electricity is increasing, gas is increasing, and yet we can't afford anything and nothing gets put back into us. It's all being put into this spectacle. I'm not gonna have empathy. I'm sorry. I don't mourn when people I don't know die, right? You don't mourn when people you don't know die. I don't mourn when people I know nothing about die because it's got nothing to do with me. The Queen did not make an impact on my life. Like, at all. Like, she was the face on the money. She did not impact me in a positive way. However, as I said, she's done a lot of terrible things. Her family have done a lot of terrible things. And so I'm not going to mourn.
They claim to be feminist. They claim to want women in power. They want to, support other women, girl boss, whatever. Queen Elizabeth embodied all of that. In a time when women truly faced inequality and, systemic oppression, whatever, she demonstrated that they could rule and that they could rule effectively and with grace and garner respect across the world.
You say you're a feminist, and yet this woman who showed that she was able to rule and be a good ruler and you don't care? It's like, it doesn't matter who it was. Again, the problem is the monarchy, not specifically her. She wasn't the first queen. Her name literally has the second in it. There have been multiple queens before her. She did not get put on the throne by the choice of the people because they did not want a queen there. They would have rather had a king. That just wasn't an option. Based on how the monarchy works, she only got that throne because she was born into it. They didn't have a choice but to give it to her. And I don't care who she is. I don't care if it's a woman. I'm not a fan, It's so ridiculous. I don't like all female leaders. I don't have to like all female leaders. Feminism isn't loving every woman. It can be cool, we had a queen for a really long time. That's cool. But I don't have to like her. Those things aren't mutually exclusive.
We should be able to take a moment to pay our respects, to think about history and all that she has left behind. It really is not that hard.
I am not sad that the Queen died. I am sad that in a few more years, we are going to have to repeat this exact same process, and I'm going to have to watch millions upon millions of pounds be spent on ridiculous spectacles just for the sake of tradition for a dying monarchy that, frankly, does not need to exist anymore, while people are still homeless and starving, and that could be prevented. Seeing the priorities of this country is absurd. It's ridiculous, and it really, really needs to change. This is where my money goes. I pay thousands of pounds a year into my taxes, and this is where they spend it. I'm not against taxes. I think taxes are great. They're very helpful. I would like, to continue having the NHS and universal healthcare and giving money into the community and social welfare. But what this does is it proves that that's not where it's going. And I don't want to give my money to this. I would love it if we could just choose where our tax money goes. I would like to directly give mine to the NHS or to feeding the children or to even fixing the roads and things, into housing, into food banks. That's where I want my tax money to go. I don't want my tax money to go into these ridiculous spectacles for racist pedophiles, I don't want that. And it's really annoying and really awful to sit back and watch and know that that's the priority and that's what I am paying for. And you mentioned a little bit earlier about people making TikToks celebrating this and dancing to it.
I also saw videos where people were doing dances celebrating her dying.
And I wanted to include my favorite one here to finish this off.
Buckingham Palace has announced the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
It's fantastic. 10 out of 10. This came up on my For You page and I lost my mind. It's so funny. I think that's all that I have to say on this. I just really wanted to talk about it and I really needed to get it off my chest because this is something that is affecting me at the moment and it is really, really frustrating and angering and I hate seeing all of this happen right on my doorstep. and seeing how many people it is affecting so negatively. Yeah, if you want to hear more about me ranting about my living situation and trying to find a place to live in London, I'm going to make a video on my second channel and then an even longer one in our podcast, which I will link in the description. I hope that that made sense at all. And I want to know, if you know, why conservative Americans love the Queen. I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. Get your priorities straight. Are you like land of the free, or I love the British monarchy? You can't have both. The Constitution or the monarchy. Which one? Can't be both. You can't have both. I'm sorry. It's against the law. It's in the Constitution. I don't know what's in the Constitution, but like it feels like it would be. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here. Thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons whose names are up on the screen right now. And a huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons. Wolf, Toulouse, Bobby, Sparrow, Josh, Mandy, Robbie, Christy, Ikazel, Robin, The Alienated Librarian, Resendo, Akita, and Skyla. I love and appreciate you all so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/savvycat, and for as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, and from there you get more and more things depending. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. Subscribe to my second channel, Kiwi with a Q, and the podcast has just made a comeback, Savvy Cat Productions, and I would love to see you on all of those places. I have given you many. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.